Hi there, I'm Peter Millard and this is 10 Minute Workshop, where 10 minutes in the workshop is never 10 minutes wasted. In the workshop this week I've got something a little different for you. It's the first episode of a new series called Festool versus Cheap Tool, and that's coming right up after the jingle. So I've chosen the Tracksaw as our first point of comparison, partly because, well, I've just bought a new one, and partly because it's often the gateway drug into the Festool system, the venerable TS55 here. But also, since they were introduced, we've had a little bit of competition from established tool makers like DeWalt and Makita came into the plunge saw, Tracksaw market in about 2009. But since then, we've gradually had sort of established tool makers. Triton is one. In the US, you have Grizzly, Smith, and I think Shopfox. Here in the UK we've got people like Erbauer and Woodster all bringing in their own sort of the cheaper brands, and then we've also got own brands from the likes of Lidl supermarkets have a Parkside Tracksaw, and also we've got this one which is a Titan, and also Erbauer. They're both sold their own brands, sold by UK retailer Screwfix. So what's the big deal about Tracksaws? Well, pretty much a Festool invention. I believe they invented the idea of it back of the ATF series in the 1960s. They've iterated on that and come up with this current model, which is the TS55R. It's a tracksaw that cuts to 55 millimeters, and it's the revised edition. That's nice, simple, very Teutonic naming system there. On the other hand, this is the, I'm going to have to read this, I'm sorry. This is the Titan TTB673CSW. We'll call that the Titan Tracksaw for now. And I'm interested in what the difference is between these, to be honest. I bought them both with my own money. You know, I've got no particular skin in this game. The reason I've got this TS55R is because my original TS55 Tracksaw that I bought 11 years ago just died, sadly, after 11 years of pretty hard daily use. I ummed and ahed about repairing it or not. In the end, I decided to opt just for a straight replacement. But I was curious, what do you get if you buy a Titan Tracksaw? This costs £90 in the UK. Festool sell a blade for their TS55 that is more expensive than this whole saw, and I was curious about what you would get and also what you might miss out on if you opt for this over this. This isn't a big, in the blue corner, in the green corner sort of competition. I'm not going to reach a firm conclusion for you over which one is best. I'm sorry about that. What's best for you isn't necessarily going to be best for me, and only you can decide that. But what I will do is hopefully give you a reasonable idea of how the two saws perform. What do you get for the extra money if you buy the Festool? What do you miss out on if you buy the Titan? So let's start with what's in the box. For the Festool, you get your tool in the fancy grey Sustainer. You're probably familiar with these. Great system, they all stack together. It's a system that's been adopted by other tool manufacturers as well now. I've switched all my tools to these because if you do cart your gear around a lot, they really make a huge difference to the way you work. Inside the box, well, you get the Festool TS55 saw. You get a detachable mains cable, and you get they've changed the end of the hoses, so you get a different hose end. They lock now, apparently. You also get a couple of little things which do something, and that's it. Oh yeah, some instructions. Always good to have. Book of words in many languages. Now with the Titan, it's a slightly different story. You're ahead of me on this one, aren't you? I can tell. The box is nothing like as fancy as a sustainer. You get the saw with the attached mains cable. You get a set of instructions, a pair of brushes, always bothers me a little bit that, and you also get a pair of short guide rails. Now you understand why they would put 2 short rails in the box rather than one long one. But one long one sure would have been more convenient for us, the users. And there we go, a pair of guide rails with joining bars already, and presumably, yep, little Allen key there to join them together. Good package. So I think it's fair to say, and hopefully we've established quite clearly from the unboxing there, that you do get a lot for your money with this Titan Tracksaw. Not to be confused with a Triton, by the way. Visually it's very similar. I don't know if they're made by the same manufacturers in the Far East or what. But we'll just remember it's the Titan. I have to remember that it's the Titan. So now, a funny thing about the Titan Tracksaw, when you first put it on the rails, it doesn't seem to sit properly. I wonder what was going on. Then I realised it actually has an anti-kickback feature built into it. You need to disengage this at the side here, and the saw will drop down onto the track. And then once that's engaged, the saw won't move back at all. In fact, it locks on so solidly that you can lift the saw up, but it will push forward. Now, when DeWalt introduced their plunge saw in 2009 or whenever it was, one of their major features was that it had built-in anti-kickback. And here we are, the 90 quid, $120 Chinese cheapie has that built in now. As well as that, you're not just stuck with the Titan guide rails, because the guide rails are completely compatible with Festool and Makita. Again, I've got to disengage that anti-kickback to get it settled on there nicely. But the other thing is, Makita's little... God, it'll take me a while to get used to this. Makita's little party piece was on their rails. They have this little lip. I don't know, can you see that? Focus. Focus, focus, focus. There's a little lip in there, and that's for when you're doing a bevel cut with a saw canted over. The Makita base plate has a little piece that will catch under that. In fact, this saw has a similar thing. You just lift this up and turn it around, and then that goes in. So, as well as the anti-kickback, you've also got the anti-tipping. So 2 of the major features from the competitor Tracksaws, Makita and DeWalt, introduced in 2009, anti-tipping and anti-kickback, are both included in the price of this little saw. That's nothing short of astonishing. So first impressions, generally pretty favourable for it's obviously a cheap saw, it's built to a price. All the switchgear is all slightly sort of sharp-edged, slightly brittle sort of plastic. There's no riving knife on the saw when you plunge, so we would need to be a little bit careful with that. There is scope for a scoring cut, which is quite good. It has the built-in anti-kickback, which is interesting, but there's no way to disengage that permanently, it must be said, and I suspect that would drive me crazy, having to disengage that every time I put it on a rail. Also, it makes the saw slightly harder to push on a rail, which means you probably would need to clamp the rails down every time you used it, and there are no clamps included in the package. So that's another minor expense. You've got a couple of rails included in it though. It comes with a 24 tooth blade, which is half as many as you get in the Festool, but I have to confess I swap out the 48 tooth blade for a 28 tooth on my Festools, and I haven't noticed any great difference in quality of cut, and we'll be testing the quality of cut later on. In terms of overall design, it's like pretty much every other Tracksaw out there, to be honest. Knobs at either end to get the bevel cut. Gauge is built into the plastic cover here, so that's fixed, and the plunge depth is the same here. All a little bit sort of, you know, lightweight, cheap and cheerful kind of fittings. I don't know how accurate that would be, but it does include a little flip up in case you're not using it on the rail, so then you can allow for the extra depth of the rail in that. So with the Festool, although you are undoubtedly getting less in the box, admittedly a much fancier box, the overall quality is much higher. The actual standard of switchgear is much better, as you'd expect, frankly. The bevels are much smoother, and of course you get a click stop indentations on the plunge depth, which I don't think any other saw has, so I suspect there's a Festool patent on that as well. However, it has to be said, there's no anti-kickback. It does have a riving knife, which not that many saws do. But no anti-kickback, no anti-tipping thing. As I say, I've never found anti-kickback or the anti-tipping thing to be a great loss, and I've been using these saws for about 11 years, so it's no great shakes. It is, of course, variable speed, which the cheap and cheerful Titan Tracksaw isn't, and overall it's a very nice tool, and I think we'll get into some direct comparisons on them now.